Welcome everyone. Thank you for making the time to join us tonight. Before we begin, I would just like to acknowledge the Guringai people, the traditional custodians of the land where I am tonight, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and future who have been the caretakers of this beautiful country for thousands of years. And I would also like to extend that to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples in attendance tonight. So I'd first like to provide an outline of tonight's session together. This is the second of 3 town hall sessions from the Manly Ward candidates from the Your Northern Beaches independent team. And I just wanted to let you know we will be recording tonight's session, mostly just so we can revisit any of the ideas discussed tonight. We are hoping it's the beginning of a conversation and hopefully a fresh new way of doing things and a way of staying in touch with the community. So tonight we have 3 key aims: to introduce you to the Manly Ward candidates for the Your Northern Beaches independent team, to listen to Seaforth, Clontarf and all the Balgowlahs, Balgowlah North and Balgowlah Heights, and understand your questions and concerns and desires for your area. And also to better understand what your expectations for council are in these areas and therefore how we could best represent you on council. So before we get into the issues, let's meet the team who would like to represent you in the Manly Ward. We are fortunate to have with us from the Your Northern Beaches independent team, the current mayor, Michael Regan, and a current councillor, Sarah Gratton. So firstly, let's meet Michael. He's the current mayor of the Northern Beaches Council, the first popularly elected mayor in Warringah in 2008 and re-elected by the community in 2012. He was elected again once on Northern Beaches Council in 2017 and was re-elected again last week. So Michael, if I were to give you 30 seconds for an elevator pitch to explain what the Northern Beaches Council has achieved under your leadership, what would that be?
30 seconds is not nearly enough, but thanks for asking me anyway. Look, thank you, Piper, and it's great to see you running for council too, and I look forward to hearing more from you. But look, very simply, what's council done? It's set out what it's basically doing. The first term I ever ran for council in 2008 was basically do the basics. Council should be paying off, have no debts or have debt that works for them. It should be involved in doing its infrastructure and its core maintenance and providing basic services and sticking to what it does best. I guess that's the same sort of model we've taken to this council, and we've I see the council laws as a community board of directors essentially, and we oversee the executive and through the CEO. And so we've paid down significant debts as Manly Council and Pittwater Council. Manly had, I think, $90 million of debt maybe, or was it $60 million of debt, perhaps 60 it was, and 30 at Pittwater. And we're slowly paying that. Well, we've paid most of that off now, which is great. We've delivered the $30 million a year savings to council and reinvested that back into infrastructure. Sarah, her background is finance. She can talk about that and what she's done to help repair the books of the councils. Depreciation was an interesting fact, I guess you could say, but none of the assets were being looked after. So that was a big thing for us. The services were either maintained at their existing levels or increased to a high level based on the 3 councils. And so we've managed to achieve that. It's taken four years at least to do that at the new council. We had to get a new CEO and a new executive and restructure accordingly. We make no apologies for that. We've got a great internal audit. We're now setting benchmarks for the rest of the state and the country, whereas, you know, as efficient as we can be and getting better, we're not perfect and we don't pretend to be. So I think what's really important is that we are heading in the right direction. We're working very closely with state government and partnering with them, and we're changing the culture of the staff, which is great because, and to be able to do what we did through COVID, no other council has provided business for its community with the kind of support that this council has. Not even the City of Sydney, which is awash with cash, has been able to do that. So I'm really proud of what we've done to do that. But also just bringing the 3 different councils and the 3 different cultures together, because it was forced marriage, I guess, because there's 2 councils that did not want to be merged, but we've managed to do that effectively. And like I said, there's still a way to go, but we are a long way down that road, and it's been very positive, and you're starting to see the results. Well, overwhelmingly seeing the results, I think.
Thanks, Michael. That's really good to hear. Before we go on, also, I'd just like to encourage people, if they feel comfortable, to turn your cameras on. No pressure, but we'd love to see your faces. I'd now like to introduce you to Sarah Gratton, one of your current Manly Ward councillors and our #1 candidate for the Manly Ward at this election. She is also the COO of UNICEF Australia and a mother of 3 teenage girls. Sarah was first elected to council in 2017, and she has taken a keen interest in the financial governance and risk management at council and is a member of the Audit and Risk Committee. She is the chair of the Transport and Travel Strategic Reference Group and has led advocacy on the tunnel and bus route changes. Sarah has also led on a number of youth issues, including achieving the recent study bubble for HSC students. So Sarah, in 30 seconds, what are you most proud of achieving for the Northern Beaches since you have been a Manly councillor?
Oh, thanks, Piper. Thanks a lot. It's been a bit of a ride, 4 years, having not had any background in local government whatsoever, and just been involved in some of the local school PNCs and Save the Heaton Avenue campaign, which I worked on with some of the Clontarf and Balgowlah residents. But Northern Beaches Council is a $5 billion organisation. And revenues and costs are sort of over $350–400 million a year. And so when I joined council, I felt it was really important that we had someone on the board, the community board, that has got those skills in finance, governance, risk management, which I do for my day job. And if we've got a community organisation of that size, we want some professional skills in there, providing that oversight, that accountability and transparency, and basically to make sure the numbers add up. And once I arrived and could see what had been going on, saw the state that Manly Council had been in when amalgamation. So I think for us residents of Manly, thank God for amalgamation. But I've sort of been working with the staff and the team on the way that they report and having KPIs and where's the business case, and all those sorts of things which they sigh and huff and puff and go away, and now they're doing that on spec. So that's great. And we've also been working in the Audit and Risk Committee, really strengthening that. I've also done quite a lot of advocacy on behalf of the community, and often it ends up being on state government issues, but I've found that I can work with the community and help raise the voice of the community to the state government. So the tunnel has been a really big one. So I've been very active in representing the community on that tunnel. Like, if we're going to have a tunnel from the state government, I can't make any decision, tunnel, no tunnel. It's not up to me. That's a state government decision. But if we're going to get a tunnel, we can try and make sure it's going to be a good one that includes some public transport, that looks after the environment, that thinks about the impacts of the community during construction. So I've been very vocal on that. The study bubble recently with HSC students and the friendship bubble for the kids, I had some students come to me and we pulled that together, got the captains forum from all of the schools on the Northern Beaches, had their school captains represent this group, took that to James Griffin, Rob Stokes, Michael helped bring in Brad Hazard, and we had this forum. We got to get to speak with the Education Minister, and we got that change made from here on the Northern Beaches with the kids. So just by supporting and letting those children's voices be heard. So I was, and the future of our community in good hands. Those kids were extraordinary. I was just so blown away by them. I think sorry, I'm going much more than 30 seconds, Piper, but the size of the new council has really sort of supercharged our ability to gain grants and appropriately look after our infrastructure. So trying to find enough funds to be able to fund some of these big works that needed to be done. And in Manly, a lot of it was really boring and things that you wouldn't see. The roads, when we did that, got the asset management plans in, the quality of the roads was really very, very poor condition. And so we've spent a lot of money as council resheeting roads. Stormwater pipes have been in a terrible state, and the harbour pools. And as the money comes in, we've done 40 baskets. Clontarf's next. We're just waiting on a state government heritage grant there. We did the Little Manly Pool as well. So building up some of those things, the public amenities, fixing those toilets was a big thing all across Manly. So we've got some great new facilities. including, they redid the ones down at North Harbour Reserve. We've got some new facilities, Balgowlah Oval, and all of the ones down in Manly, and the new toilets in East Esplanade. And it's amazing how important toilets are to people. So public toilets have been a really, good thing that I've been able to achieve. I think mostly I've just really enjoyed working with a great team of people, working with each other. We support, I can work with the state MPs, I work with the staff, I work with my fellow councillors, all sides of politics. It's been a really enjoyable experience. So I'm putting my hand up to go again and continue. We've done all this strategic setup of the last 4 years as we've amalgamated, and I'm really looking forward to implementing those strategies now and really seeing how we can continue to make this council the best that there is.
Yeah, wow. Thanks, Sarah. The last 4 years sound incredibly busy, but thank you so much for all that you do. As there are 3 councillors in the Manly ward, we have 2 new candidates for you to meet tonight. So let me introduce you to Chris Jackson, a local bus driver, a former soldier and a musician. The Manly resident is a keen swimmer and runner who wants more participation in sport for greater health and wellbeing. And Chris is a supporter of local business and wants to ensure the council continues to engage with them in their long-term recovery. So Chris, what are your reasons for running for council in 30 seconds?
In 30 seconds. Thanks, Piper. It's great to be here tonight, and I'm really proud to be standing with you and Councillor Gratton for the December 4 elections. I've lived in the area 20 years and my life has been so much better since I've lived here. And I think the opportunity to run for council is an opportunity to give back to the community, a community that I've really grown to love. I've driven buses on the Northern Beaches and the Lower North Shore for about 11 years. As you said, I was a soldier in a previous life and a professional musician. So the arts and music are really close to my heart. And I'd like to see the town centre of Manly reinvigorated, the businesses, the cafes, the bars, bring that all back to life. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. That's really great to hear. And I am the 3rd candidate for the Manly ward. So to give you a little bit of information about me, I'm a university student in my 1st year doing a Bachelor of Communication Journalism, and I'll actually be adding law to that next year to make me extra busy. I went to school locally in Manlyvale at McKellar Girls High School, and I'm an active volunteer lifesaver and a current Ironwoman competitor. On that note, as you can probably tell, I'm wearing a lovely black eye tonight from training this afternoon, but that's all part of it, and I love the sport, so just have to put up with that, I guess. I also have a passion for social justice, especially in regards to Indigenous affairs, and I'm keen to see the youth have a stronger voice within council. So as I mentioned, one of the main reasons I am running for council is that I want to be a voice of support for the youth. I'm a first-time voter myself this year, and I know that young people sometimes feel like their needs aren't heard, so I want to be that strong voice of support within council. And there are a few key areas I am passionate about, and one of which is making sure there is enough affordable housing available so that I can move out of home eventually and leave my poor parents alone. So now that you've met the Your Northern Beaches team from the Manly ward, some of you came to our online launch about a month ago, so you already know a little bit about us. But if you have questions for us, you are welcome to ask us. So now you know who we are, we can move on to the important part of this evening. Now we want to hear from you. So this is your opportunity to ask questions, raise concerns, or share positive things that are going on in the community. It is important for us to know about these positive things too. So we have a few questions that were sent in, and you will get your chance to speak live, or please type your questions into the chat. And we will also be running a few polls, or you can write in the chat. So we'd really appreciate your thoughts, in particular on what makes Seaforth or the Balgowlahs or Clontarf special to you, your top 2 issues for Seaforth, the Balgowlahs or Clontarf, and what do the young adults of Seaforth, the Balgowlahs or Clontarf want? So please remember that the idea here is that we listen and collect your information about your suburb. We won't necessarily have answers, but we might be able to start or continue to raise awareness about these issues. So if you could pop some of your questions into the chat, and hopefully we'll get to hear about some of them tonight. But to start with, we have 7 goals on our Manly ward flyer that are starting to hit the letterboxes. And we believe 4 of these are very relevant to Seaforth, Balgowlah and Clontarf, and would like some feedback on how they resonate with you. So the first one is to advocate to reduce local traffic congestion, parking stresses, and the adverse impacts of the Beaches Link tunnel on environment and community. So maybe to start with, Sarah, you could comment on this.
Sure. So thanks, Piper. So the traffic congestion, it's sort of it's coming back again, isn't it? After we've had the lockdowns and everyone's been home, but the coming back, trying to get to work in the morning, getting out onto Burnt Bridge Creek, deviation down Spit Hill, the congestion that backs up along Sydney Road, and all of the rat running that causes. So local roads is one thing, the big roads is the state government. So we sort of need to work together with state government to resolve those issues. We also have the issues sort of Balgowlah Road and Condamine Street on a Saturday morning down near Bunnings. Oh my goodness, you know, some of these areas that we really need to be able to seek some grant funding and investment to try to make some of those streets work a little bit easier. It can be very hard for us to get out of our suburbs often in the morning. So that's been sort of a key area I've been looking at. Relation to the Beaches Link Tunnel, I mentioned that briefly earlier. So, and the bus route changes was something else that I've been working on. Last year, when the bus route changes were announced, we lost the 171 for a while there. North Balgowlah was hammered with the bus route changes there. That's significant. And I worked really hard with members of the community, lobbying with James Griffin, who also worked hard, and we got a lot of those changes reversed, which was fantastic. Not perfect, but a lot better. And we got our 171 express to the city back, and some significant changes through working with the residents in North Balgowlah. So there's some of the things that I've been working on, but keen to hear from anybody who's got any views on anything. Is that a top issue for you? And what other things do we need to think about?
Yeah, I saw a comment about parking in Clontarf, and I rented for 10 years in Manly in the area they call Isthmus, and on Saturday and Sunday you drive around for 20 minutes looking for a park, and I don't know how you stop people from coming to the places they want to go. You know, the beaches, the harbour. Clontarf is just a stunning place to go. My favourite place is Grotto Point because you can't drive there, so that's a great place to go.
And in fact, council are looking at some of the parking down there at the moment, and we're investigating whether there might be some sort of parking scheme that can be put in place for the local streets, because we park in the Clontarf parking area, and then if that you have to pay there, then people are spilling out onto the local streets and causing dreadful congestion, and people can't access their driveways. So that's being investigated at the moment. That's going to be up to state government to allow us to put in a parking scheme, but it's something that the staff are working on at least.
I can see Wayne has commented to saying Bunnings employees are not allowed to park in their car park on the weekends and holidays, so that they add to the street parking issues in and around the store. That's another good point.
Sarah, I don't know if you've done this before, but maybe we should write to Bunnings, because I've been there a few times on weekends and it's never full, the car park. So perhaps it's something we can actually just write to the owners and say, boy, can you do something about it? So that's a good point you raised.
Yeah. Did anyone else have anything to add on?
Yeah, I have a comment. I'm sorry, I'm in the dark. I'm just walking back. So I got the video on, but I just wanted to say that I have noticed a lot of shared paths and bike paths coming up recently around kind of the Northern Beaches area. And I think that's great. I mean, we just bought a place in Manlyvale. We walk or ride as much as possible. And I think there's actually one path that I'm about to walk on, which was recently just opened near the golf course in Manly, between McKellar School and the golf course, which is fantastic. And I think, you know, having those bike paths or shared paths just encourages more people to you know, use alternative forms other than cars. We try and use the bus as well, even though we have a car, to get to DY and areas like that, which is a lot more accessible nowadays. So I think kudos to the council for the work that's been done in that space.
Great. I was just saying, Councillor Gratton is actually on the Transport and Travel SRG. It's a baby, and one of the things we've been advocating for, if COVID hadn't hit, was it $46 million loss of revenue to council over the last 2 years, I think, Sarah? So yeah.
You're doing well on the numbers tonight, Michael. Good job.
Yeah, long council meeting last night. But yeah, $46 million. And part of our recovery for that is because, as I said before, we're not going to borrow money like the state and federal government can do, because we can't just raise taxes or create new revenues. So we've moved capital works projects out several years to be able to make sure that we're not borrowing money. It's the easiest way to explain it. So one of the things that got moved out was additional shared paths and footpaths, which is a shame because we were making significant progress on delivering new footpaths, wider footpaths, shared paths, and separate bike lanes. And the connections from Manly to DY was one of the top priorities. Particularly, there's a lot of missing connections, as Sebastian has pointed out there. There's quite a few missing connections we are aware of, and we're keen to address and fix, because a lot of it's flat as well. So it's important that we can do that and make it a safer environment, not just like people to cycle, particularly for kids.
And yeah, but as soon as you get up the hill though, Michael, so you know where Balgowlah Heights, Seaforth, and North Balgowlah, there's a few hills, so the bikes.
I keep telling you, an electric bike, Sarah.
Yeah.
Electric bike, they work well.
That's a big hill going up Woodland Street. Oh my goodness. But yeah.
Yeah. I see Paul has asked a question. Paul, we might come back to that one in a minute. I just see a couple of other people have further concerns on this issue. So someone has commented they're concerned by the speed and unsafe driving on Beatrice Street combined with parking and buses. And then
Sarah?
Christine, yeah, Sarah?
Does someone want to sort of expand on that, and we can? No, I mean, certainly something that we can.
My experience of Beatrice Street driving a bus is it's pretty tricky, because it's a long downhill and it's not particularly wide, and the road coming up from Clontarf at the bottom, the bus has to make a sharp left to go back towards the east, and or back towards Balgowlah Heights, I guess you'd say. And yeah, I mean, people can't park down there because of that. It's too narrow.
Yeah, and I know there's been problems with wing mirrors being knocked and things as well, people that park on Beatrice Street. So that's...
It wasn't me.
Look, I think the simplest solution for that one is we'll take that one, copy it, cut and paste it, and just refer that to the traffic committee, because they work directly with the New South Wales buses, or Transport for New South Wales, whatever you call these days. You change your name every 5 minutes. But we'll deal with them and ask them and refer it. That's an easy one to deal with, I think.
And one of the other things that's coming in is a potential to look at some 30k zones, 30 km/h zones, like we trialled in Manly. The state government have now said that can be rolled out to other areas, and we could have a look at some of those things as well. Maybe have a conversation whether there is an argument about around those Balgowlah shops to the school, perhaps. Maybe that's somewhere, maybe around North Balgowlah village as well. That might be something we'd like to look at. So we'd have to get the community's view on whether that would work.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good ideas there. Christine has also mentioned there are no footpaths around North Balgowlah, and lots of people are walking on the road, so it's particularly dangerous for kids walking to school. So that's definitely another big issue.
Yeah, we've actually, the staff have gone through a really thorough process mapping out all of the key routes for footpaths, particularly connecting schools with shops and transport routes. There is a new footpath going in on Orunga at the moment, and actually the residents are really upset about that path. So it's, you know, you're always balancing these different things, but you know, but we're looking at that. We've got a plan. We're working through it systematically. And if there are key streets or key areas you think are really important, please just send me an email or put it in the chat tonight, because we can just go and check and see where they're up to, see how long it might be before those footpaths can come in.
We guarantee it's on a list, that's right.
Awesome. Well, we might jump back to Paul's question quickly before we move on, so I don't forget that one. Paula said, what is the proposal from our team into how to facilitate and give like-for-like solutions to the issue of dirt jumps popping up during COVID lockdowns? Traditionally, this occurs during each school holidays. And then because of lockdown, there's more bikes and there's a need to give suitable pump tracks. However, the solution is not to Grove. The Grove is not it.
Who wants to start? Sarah, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll start. You jump in. I know you've been doing some work broader beyond the Manly ward as well. Yeah, so the Grove has been a bit of an issue, as we know, but there's a whole lot of money's been put in for a beginner to sort of young, sort of the younger kid end, to have a track with a few for the intermediate. We're also looking to cater for those intermediate and more advanced riders. There's a site that they've found near Seaforth Oval without any neighbours, which is actually quite important, so that there's much less impact on local adjacent residences. But there's a bit of a land swap thing that has to happen with the state government, so we're just waiting for that to be sorted out. But the plan is to actually put in a bike track there, a pump track or what have you, for some of those more advanced riders as well. And we've also got a whole lot of money that we've set aside in the budget to help, where we're maintaining tracks on Manly Dam this year. And then I think there's up to $1 million for some major upgrades and new tracks in Manly Dam over the next couple of years. Michael, anything else there that?
Yeah, just there's that Seaforth Oval that we're just waiting on approval from the state government to transfer the land over to us, just down this southern side of the oval there into the car park. So that's another consideration. There's others across the area, but the reality is COVID has made it, the last 2 years has made these things explode, and we have been trying to respond, but we just don't have enough park staff, enough rangers, and national parks don't have, and no sooner flatten them than they pop up again the next day. So it's this constant cycle. So we're trying to deal with the residents and the local kids directly, and just sort of say, look, if you do it over here, we'll let you keep that if you stay and maintain that, and we'll let you sort of keep that, but stay off this particular area. So there's some examples at Bayview, Avalon, Collaroy, Belrose, geez, I'm forgetting them all now, but there's a whole heap of them.
Signs of Passmore.
Yeah, so say John Fisher Park, Passmore, there's a whole bunch, that's right. And so when they're in the riparian zones in particular, it's not, but we've had some pretty good success of managing a lot of them, but there's some that are just, you can't win. So we're just constantly flattening them. You see the social media, or maybe you don't, but I see some of the social media the commentary, and it's not pleasant. It's usually parents encouraging their kids, and bad counsel, how dare you, they don't care about the wildlife, it's just a few trees, it's just a bit of dirt. Well, that's kind of right if it's over in a particular part, but when it's nice and close to certain other threatened species, or it's in the riparian zones, it's just not cool. Or if it causes damage, as it was at Lambie Heights, to residents, that's not acceptable. So we're trying to get on top of it, but it's just it's resource intensive, and we don't have it. But COVID has just exacerbated the problem, and even around Manly Dam, we've got $1 million put aside to do upgrades and stuff. We spend $90,000 a year on basic maintenance of just the actual trail itself, and that hasn't been able to cope with the 7-day-a-week use. And it's a bit like our sports fields. Us cricketers, we look after them in summer. So when soccer comes around, the grounds are looking beautiful and green and lush, and after 3 or 4 weeks of 7 days a week play, it's back to a bare, barren surface. And it's no different, I guess, with these tracks. So we're doing our best, and we're just going to have to reprioritise how we spend our money, essentially. That's what it's come down to, because it is such a demand. And we're building additional facilities, as I said, in terms of, but the demand is insatiable. And that should probably segue to dogs. I just saw dogs in the chat there. Piper, you wanted to do that?
Yeah. There's been a few comments about dogs. Wayne's just mentioning that part of the issue at Clontarf is all the cars parking near Sandy Bay. And so whether more dog beaches could potentially help that. And he's just added down below, please explain where you stand on opening more ocean-facing beaches for dog owners, and when do you expect us to get access to Mona Vale and North Palm Beach?
Do you want me to start that one, Sarah? Or?
You can start on dogs.
I'll just say on the Clontarf one specifically, it's really interesting. All through lockdown, particularly over summer, places like Clontarf were flat chat. Like it was just like a normal summer's day, but they were all locals. It wasn't like it was people coming from over the bridge or from out west or anything like that. They were all locals. Similarly, up at Palm Beach, which normally gets smashed, and it can take you an hour and a half to get from Avalon to Palm Beach in traffic. If they were saying we've got car spaces, we've never seen this before. We've actually got, we can park our car down into the locals. We'll see. There's been a really interesting space, COVID, and what we're learning and like, so parking is an issue everywhere. I don't know what the answer is. People don't want multi-story car parks. They don't want, they won't use public transport. They'll drive around and park in the streets. People who don't want to have their streets have time parking. But maybe there's a balance in there. Maybe we do some time parking on weekends only in certain streets, and we can only do our best to manage it. I don't believe in resident parking schemes because it usually discriminates. If it's implemented properly, it discriminates against the homeowner, generally speaking, because of the way it's, because the one in Manly doesn't comply, and that's why it causes more problems than it's solved. So if you go forward to dog beaches, you're asking about that. So where council got in trouble before is we inherited an old Pittwater Council resolution, Station Beach, that the council did not act on. And I'll have to be careful with my wording here because I'm not sure what's public and what's not. And Sarah can pull me up at any time. But essentially, we went down the path of opening it up. There'll be, you know, the dog owner said, please, let's do a trial. We said that's fair and reasonable. I think the council vote was 10-3, give or take. Sorry, 10-5 maybe or more. Anyway, it was the majority, and we said get on with it. Some very Cluey residents took us to court and won because council hadn't followed certain procedures. And the procedures were around getting statement of environmental impacts, and the impacts the dogs would have on seagrass, on the actual sand, and on the actual golf course. There's a whole bunch of things that council technically didn't follow. And it reminded me of a process that we looked at in South Kurkul and North Kurkul, where Northern Beaches, Warringah Council, back in 2010, I think it was, we looked at doing Kurkul. And we looked at, again, doing a timed trial or something like that. And it got ruled out straight away by the environmental because of the sand dunes and the threatened species that were in there and the creatures, et cetera, and so forth. And unless we were going to, or even if we were going to fence all of that with barbed wire and all that to protect dogs, stop dogs from getting in there and being their normal curious selves, it wasn't going to satisfy the authorities. So we had to walk away from that. Mona Vale is much closer. North, is it South Mona Vale or did you say North Mona Vale? I thought it was South Mona Vale, but I'm probably wrong. But that's much closer. And I think the majority of the council has supported that. The report will come back to us. We don't want to go to court again. There's a lot of people who are opposed to it.
There's an environmental process that has to go through there. Same with Palm Beach as well. So we'll just, the new council will just have to work through that once those environmental reports come back and see what's going to be allowed. We're not going to be able to get stung again like we did up at Station Beach.
Yeah, and the reality is it's a very divisive topic because there's many people who want dogs on a beach as there are opposed, and there doesn't seem to be any grey area. And it's just fun being a politician talking about that and trying to please everybody.
Yeah. So Michael, Wayne's just wondering, do you know a time frame or it's still very uncertain?
So for that one, yeah, I think within 6 months, wasn't it, Sarah? Was it first half of next year? It was Mona Vale.
6 to 12 months, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, National Parks have to sign off the Palm Beach one, so and I don't think they had or were wanting to, so they've already moved it once based on National Parks advice.
Yep. And I just saw the note from Paloma on the little penguins. So dear to my heart, those little penguins. So something that we have learned, and there's a lot of little penguin habitat, and we know that the numbers are down now at about 23 pairs, I think it is, which is not enough to be sustainable. But something that we've learned is the dogs on the beaches leave scent, which affects the penguins' nests, and they don't return to the nests once there's been a dog down there where they're nesting, and they nest somewhere for life. So it really threatens their continued existence. So we have to be very careful about where the dogs are, particularly on the harbour beaches and around that, Collins is in particular, around to Little Manly, Delwood Beach, areas of particular concern there. So I don't know of endangered penguins in Clontarf, but that's not on the map that I've seen, but maybe there are or were some down there. So that would be a problem with Sandy Bay, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so all right. We have a question. Sebastian was keen to ask a few questions about waste. So Sebastian, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but at the beach, particularly on weekends, some of the bins get really, really full. And I think it's a particular concern when it's like near the ocean, near the pools. I know DY, where I used to live, it was a problem at freshwater, at the shops, for example. And I think there's a couple of issues. One is that there's a lot of takeaway kind of containers. They fill up the bin very quickly because it's a very narrow opening. And once the bin is full, there's just people, don't want to put their hand in to flatten it down. So I've noticed at City of Sydney, there are bins that have the solar panels and actually flatten it down and can fit a lot more waste in a particular bin. I've noticed that in Melbourne as well. So I'm just wondering whether that's something that's ever been explored on the northern beaches to address that. I guess the other part is how can we actually reduce waste? I've noticed that, at work and some of my friends, that there was a big uptake in things like keep cups before COVID. And I think with COVID hitting, it's made a really big impact. A lot of the coffee shops stopped accepting, for some period. Some of them still don't accept. So I'm wondering whether the council can do anything, as we recover, as we get through the other side of COVID, to encourage restaurants, coffee shops, bakeries to use reusable, potentially not just things like coffee cups, but also things like if you go get a burger or if you go get fish and chips, could the council look into having some sort of container that could be dropped off and reused, and things that could potentially incentivize people to reduce waste. So yeah, just a couple of ideas that I thought I'd throw out there on that issue.
Yeah, great ideas, Sebastian. We're actually talking about waste last night, and the figure released 15 to 20 million takeaway coffee cups in a year on the northern beaches. 15 to 20 million, it's so many. And it's been a big problem during COVID, of course. We had the Swap for Good program with the Keep Cups. It was going really quite well. And then since the COVID pandemic, everyone's concerned about reusing things and many of the cafes. So absolutely, let's look back into that, about reinvigorating that and encouraging the Keep Cups. We did have that compacting bin. We trialed that somewhere, Michael. Do you recall what happened with that?
I think it was at Shelley Beach, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was down at Shelley Beach. We put it down there, maybe. My understanding is it didn't do as we hoped it would. So I understood we're going to then trial a different bin, a different company or whatever it was. So it's a good point. We should chase that up with that. My experience in waste is that it does not matter. Just as in another lifetime, I used to be the manager of street cleaning, domestic waste, trade waste at City of Sydney Council. So I managed all those contracts, the street bins, major event cleanups and the like. And it would not matter how many bins you put out, you couldn't keep up with the flow, particularly at beaches and the like, or events. So you could park a garbage truck there all day, which no one wants to see either, or smell or hear, etc. So it's not practical. And so we're trying to balance that. We do from spring onwards, we triple, quadruple quadruple our collections over that period, and certain key spots like DY Beach, like Freshwater, like Manly, and they're done 3 to 4 times additionally a day and collected. You're right about the bins. They try and prevent that, the waste going in. No one's put their hand down, but that also prevents litter going in, so people actually take their rubbish home with them. That happens more than people will appreciate, that people do actually take their rubbish home. I'm one of them. I know lots of my friends and family do as well. That it's no one simple solution, but the compact bins are a genuine. I just think they've been plagued with issues, and I think I think technology changes rapidly, and I think we'll see some real positives and some better technology sooner rather than later. So you will see those bins rolled out more frequently everywhere, I think, sooner rather than later. Our collection costs won't get down because we can't keep on top of the waste now during summer. And we can put more bins there, then people complain about it's unsightly. And you can have the big, Sulu bins there, and people can open it and throw stuff in. But again, that discourages people from taking it home. The office, for example, has a collection. I think the staff are in there at 10 o'clock at night, post the 8 o'clock lockdown. 10 o'clock they're there getting all the stuff, and then they're back in again at 6 o'clock to do the rest of the stuff that they might have missed or something like that. So there's different things in place, like systems like that work. But the reduction thing, and there's also what Sarah did mention with the Swap for Good stuff, is there's a whole bunch of other programs that we've been award-winning and innovative with, and worked with local community groups and local businesses to implement. And Swap for Good is one of them. And of course, it's just gone from the top of my head, that 2 other ones that were took in my tongue that we've also implemented, which were really successful. And then, as you pointed out, COVID happened, and they took us to take away cups again, which was crazy. I still don't understand that, but anyway. Apparently it was about touching it or something like that. If I touch it and I have COVID, I give it to the staff member or something, was the theory. Yeah. But anyway. But we are, those bins are definitely trial. The technology's failed us, and they haven't worked in the other places that I'm aware of. They're there still, and probably more high profile than ours was. So, but we should ramp that up and check it out.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years, so maybe that technology's improved it. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've done quite a bit of other things with waste too, haven't we? So when the new waste contract came, and we've got some new, so that, the waste all goes up to Kimbrickie, we're recovering a lot more of that waste. There's a great system where the red bins, the waste is taken out, and a lot of the organic material is taken out of that to actually really reduce the waste volumes. And we do really well on our green waste. The quality of our green waste means that we get a really good return for that
highest
waste.
Quality in the state.
Yeah, so it's always more to do though, Sebastian, absolutely. And it's still a big problem.
On the red bins, is there a plan to actually have a separate collection for like food scraps, or is the intention just to use the existing red bin and take it out of there?
So at the moment, sorry if I don't explain this well enough, I apologise, but at the moment we recover in the current process. There is 85%, 95% we recover from the red bin, and only 5 to 10% goes to waste.
No, I think it was 0 and now it's 40%. So we've increased it.
Yeah, it was 0 now 40, that's right. And so now, in the FOGO system, which is that food scraps in the normal green bin that Penrith has had for 10, 15 plus years, has plateaued. So if you live in a unit block over here, you see plastic bags in the garbage, sorry, in the recycling bins, whether it's paper or whether it's plastic, whether it's cans, etc. Bottles, you see plastic bags in all the time. It does your head in, right? Pizza boxes, the whole lot. So over in the west, in Penrith, where they've had FOGO, it's just been an abject failure, in my opinion, and what we've seen. But the state government is now starting to think about putting all councils onto it to make it one system. And now they're phasing plastics out, which is a good thing. It's a great thing. We might see we might see FOGO in the system in some form, but the technology we've got at the moment was better, and that's why we went with it, and it recovered more. So I guess it's now, and we want to actually, one of the things we're looking at is a soft plastics collection from your side, or being able to put it into your yellow bin. So that's one of the things we're looking at, being able to put your soft plastics in. The other side of that is that it works quite well. At the moment, a lot of people are taking their soft plastics or Woolies and Coles, and it's getting transferred down to Albury and getting turned into good products. So that's which one do we go with, I guess? And the one we want to do is give every household who wants one a compost bin. That's our first goal, and it was very successful when we did it. Just we said, we sold out 1,000 straight away. We gave them away, and there's waiting lists, and the government hasn't funded that because they've got other announcements to make. So, and there's another system that we're talking about, which was being able to dump your stuff at the park. There's like community places where you can dump your green waste and your FOGO type stuff, your food waste and things. But there's again the concern that it'll be contaminated, and who's going to look after it? Who's the sheriff?
Yeah. Before we move on, we're running out of time. There's some great discussion going on. Wayne just wanted to know quickly, was the worm farm program successful last year?
Hugely successful, to the point where the government won't give us any more money. We pay the government $10 million, so all your waste contracts, so you pay $440 a year for the waste. That's your collection, the whole lot. A lot of that is goes to the state government in tax. So $10 million plus a year goes to state government to go into a waste recovery tax, and they're supposed to give it back to councils for education programs, for worm farms, for whatever. But they've been sitting on it for about 4 or 5 years, and there's several $1 billion in it now. And they're going to kick off the circular economy apparently with all this money, so that they've collected from the ratepayer. So, but yeah, we pay $10 million a year, which is a significant amount of your $440 a year that you pay in your bins. But the worm farms is definitely on our list, and you'll hopefully hear about it by the end of the year.
Awesome. Okay, we'll move on to the second goal. Work with local businesses and community groups to revitalise the economies of Balgowlah, Balgowlah Heights, North Balgowlah and Seaforth. So Chris, did you want to comment on this? And then anyone else that has something to add, you're more than welcome.
Thanks, Piper. Sarah, Gratton and I were up at Seaforth at the local corner cafe, I think, at the roundabout last weekend. And it was great to see that cafe buzzing. It's a really popular cafe. And that strip along Sydney Road there, where the supermarket is, a couple of other cafes, the Belgian cafe and Plato's, the Greek restaurant. And on the other side of the roundabout, there's the physio and Seaforth vet. And that part of the business strip is working really well. But it's a tricky area because of Sydney Road cutting right through the middle of it. My local is Stocklands, and everything's getting back to normal there. It's great. It's really encouraging to see the cafes having people sitting in them and eating again. And likewise, I was down in Manly earlier this week for a coffee and a chat to some people down there. And yeah, it's coming back to life. I don't see that there's anything I can do immediately to help those businesses, but moving forward, I think there's always strategies that can be put in place to help out.
Yeah, I think one of the things, particularly down in Manly, is we need to strategically plan that area more holistically. We've been sort of looking at it in bits and bobs, and I mean, Candy's got her wonderful idea for the town hall and turning into a performing arts centre, but we need to look at it holistically. From the library, I think that library needs to be expanded. We've got that big ugly Whistler Street car park next to it, all of the council buildings. I think we need to look at it as a precinct and strategically work through what do we need down there to support a sort of a civic centre, if you like, for the town of Manly, so that we're not just relying on tourist traffic and commuters at the bookends of the day, and we want to support our local businesses down there during the day as well. So how can we bring some businesses down there, and so that if we have humps like this with tourism, that we've got enough to support the economy of the Manly area and the services for our community. And then as we branch out from that Manly Centre, which has been really hurting because they're really relying on the tourism, our villages are actually buzzing at the moment because we've all been at home and working at home. And so a lot of the local those that could do takeaway have been buzzing, but what we really need to look at now is how do we support all of those businesses and shop local as we come back, so that they survive and we don't end up with a whole lot of empty shops.
So Sarah, what does Balgowlah, I mean, for Back to Business, we've been supporting hundreds of businesses as they come back from COVID and pre and during COVID, etc. And what we were doing, making parking 1 hour to 5 minutes so that people can, you know, Uber Eats or us getting takeaway can stop, go, and whatever it is. And so we've done all those things. We're throwing open footpaths for free. We rewrote the laws for state government to be able to provide exemptions for licensing and food service on private property as well as public property. So that's all just, you don't have, that's exempt now till April. And we wrote that for the government and all the Regis Council, which I'm really proud of. So we're doing all those things, but if there's beautification things that Balgowlah and the like need, that's the sort of stuff that we need to make it more functional and whatever it is. Now's the time to start talking about that, because government's got a lot of money.
We've had some good money actually in Balgowlah recently. We've redone all of the paving there down the main street on Sydney Road, the little area outside of Zeus and is it Barcino there with the fairy lights, which actually need a whole lot of bulb replacements. I noticed the other day. I need to send that email. So that's good. But one of the things I was talking about with Seaforth shop owners is that they've got some back gardens and they're not allowed to have anybody sort of inside really at the moment, and they've got limited footpath space out the front, and they'd like to be able to open the back garden. So I showed them the Back to Business form and said, you know, fill in a note and submit that, and we can definitely, the staff will have a look and see what sort of things we can bring more of a buzz and a revival back there.
And you watch a lot of this will stay on beyond April because it'll work.
Yeah, exactly.
So does anyone else have anything to add? What do you guys think is needed to revive your local shops? Does anyone have any comments?
Don't say more parking.
There's probably no more lockdown. It's probably the best thing the shop owners could have.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if that's it for that one, we'll move on to our third goal. Which is to protect our harbour, coastal and bush environment from inappropriate development via a new LEP and build resilience to the impacts of climate change. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Maybe Sarah, you could start us off by commenting.
Sure. So one of the biggest projects that will be facing council over the next sort of 2 years is the new local environmental plan, the LEP, and a lot of work has been done at the moment. All of the pre-work, we've just had the environment study come to council yesterday. We've been doing the economic study. We've done the housing plan and so forth. And so we're doing all of this pre-work, looking at where employment will go, and then that will have to come into one unified local environmental plan, because at the moment we've still got the Manly plan, the Pittwater plan, the Warringah plan, the French's Forest Zone, the Warriewood plan, and we need it all together in one. And so it's a really big project. It's a very complicated project, and we need a lot of involvement from the community on that, about how we want to see our community going forward. So we've had a discussion paper come out for consultation and dealing with some of these issues of development. And what you're trying to balance up is we don't actually need that many new dwellings on the northern beaches to meet our, or many changes to the planning zonings to meet our requirements of the state government. I think it's 250 odd homes is extra dwellings is all that's needed. But what we're finding is with the housing affordability issues, we need to change some of the mix of the housing and have a look at how we can provide that and where is best to provide that. If we're going to have some sort of manor houses or terraces type housing, none of us are talking about, big, tall, multi-story buildings. We don't need Chatswoods all over the northern beaches, far from it. What we're actually looking at is where we can, close to town centres and significant centres, we can allow a little bit more density. And you can't do much in Manly. We're already pretty jolly full, right? So, but maybe around Balgowlah and Manly Vale are looking at areas for a little bit more infill, but that can be largely achieved through existing planning laws. So we don't need to make massive changes there, and to provide some more affordable housing. I mean, Michael, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, Sebastian just asked a good question in the thing there. What about duplexes? The short answer is council is considering all options. The LEP is up shortly, so we've focused our housing on French's Forest, Brookvale, there've just been some announcements by Infrastructure Australia where we've negotiated with them some bypasses on, so where Warringah Road and Pittwater Road join each other on the Harbord Road outside Office Works, terrible intersection there. There'll be some overpass, underpass type action there, which is significant, which has maximum impact on traffic flow and allows additional growth in Brookvale. So Brookvale needs to be protected for its jobs and its industrial areas, so allowing some additional height there. The duplexes and other forms of that kind of housing, we're looking at, say, the old 750 square metre lots of land being able to be subdivided into 3 lots of, say, 200 and 250 in certain areas near the town centres. So think somewhere like French's Forest, think somewhere like Beacon Hill, think somewhere on those sort of main roads and back 400 metres, give or take. They're the kinds of places where that sort of stuff you'll start to see being permissible post probably sometime mid to late next year when the LEP process is considered. So Rob Stokes wrote a paper on it called The Missing Middle, and duplexes is one of those things, terraces, and there's some really clever design. What we want to do is make sure we've got a mix of the old large light houses, that we've got the unit blocks contained in the places like DY and French's Forest around the hospital, and really that's about it. And so everything else, because the traffic doesn't work. So all the traffic modelling is very sophisticated these days, just shows that the house pool sign is pretty much up very soon. So there is no additional growth, for example, planned for Manly, full stop. All the additional growth is in French's Forest, Brookvale, a little bit of Ingleside, but not much. And that's really about it, because even with the tunnel, the transport fails. So, and the government, even though the Labor Party openly, actively talk about the state elections coming up, but they're going to promote more growth in Northern Beaches, we can at least go back to them with facts and figures and say, no, we're taking our fair share in these centres, and we'll do the other missing middle stuff where we can do that. They put the infrastructure in, say there's a B-line style bus now from DY to Chatswood that exists, turn up and go every 10 minutes, 9 stops, fabulous service. That will grow as the centres grow, and particularly when you put that housing in like duplexes and villas, that will absolutely grow that demand for that service. And when the tunnel is there, the tunnel will provide 24-hour bus lanes and will provide direct access into North Sydney, into St Leonard's and Chatswood. Now the government said they're not putting 24-hour bus lanes on the pretty pictures at the moment, but they're already putting electric buses on now. The whole fleet's converting to electric, and there'll be hydrogen electric soon. All that feeds into just addressing the existing issues of housing and affordability. But it's a work in progress, but the LEP is where it's going to happen. But Manly, by and large, is protected from any future growth because there's just no capacity here. You might see a little bit in North Balgowlah, but not a lot. And again, that would be more the terrace style housing, or and that would be just limited to certain streets even. I don't think there's any proposed changes, to be fair. And by the way, I noticed another comment about Wake Parkway and speeding and trucks and stuff like that. Just know I'm taking some notes of all that. I'll talk to the police about that. So it's a main road, and there's those trucks using those brakes and things. It's a serious issue, and so we'll talk to them. And I also noted Wayne's other comments too about around his street, the speeding vehicles there. We'll get back on top of that.
Yeah, awesome. You guys probably have noticed a poll just popped up as well, so we'd love for you to answer that, so we can get a bit more of an idea about what your needs are and what you guys are wanting in your area. We're very close to the end of this session. There's been some great ideas tonight and lots of discussion, which is amazing. We're just running out of time, but just to quickly touch on the 4th goal, which is to address the needs of our marginalised, particularly our elderly and young people, to ensure they receive appropriate support for their ongoing health and well-being. This is a really important one for me. I think sometimes marginalised groups are left out of decision-making processes. And as a young person myself and a first-time voter, I want to be that strong voice of support for the youth. I think a massive part of that is ensuring their mental well-being is supported. As you're all very aware, we're living in a crazy time at the moment, and I think that mental health has definitely taken a toll. So I just want to be someone that will listen to people's concerns and do what I can to help. But obviously this is a big issue and something for us to consider moving forward. As we get to the end of tonight's session, I just wanted to give you a quick outline as to how democracy works in our local area. So on the 4th of December, you will need to vote at the local council election for 3 Manly ward councillors. And the Northern Beaches Council has 5 wards: Pittwater, Narrabeen, Frenchs Forest, Curl, and the amazing Manly ward, which includes Manly, Fairlight, Seaforth, Balgowlah, North Balgowlah, Balgowlah Heights, Clontarf, Manly Vale, and the south side of Queenscliff. And 3 councillors are elected in each ward from the different groups or parties who stand for election. All 3 of us are ready to represent you, and we will take your concerns and advocate for you in council. So on December 4th, we'd really encourage you to look for the Your Northern Beaches Independent team on the ballot paper and vote 1 above the line for the Your Northern Beaches Independent team. But hopefully we can meet you all in person soon. So look out for the orange shirts and caps, or email us to continue this chat. But that concludes tonight's town hall session. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and care for our great community this evening. Have a great night.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Barbara.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. And Sebastian, I answered your question about climate change too. I just, as we were getting cut off there, it's a really important issue for all of us, and probably our #1 issue.
And if there was anything we didn't discuss tonight, look, make sure to drop me an email, or you see me on Facebook pretty regularly, so drop me a note and I'll see what I can find out. Or I just keen to hear from everyone. What are the key things that we need to look at and do, and just to keep making our place the best place to live.
Absolutely.
Thanks for taking the time, guys, to
Well
come
done.
and listen.
No, thanks for joining us, everybody. Much
Thanks for
appreciated.
joining us.
Yes, bye.